Right. Hi, everybody. We're gonna just give it another minute or two here so that we can get everybody in the door, and I'm guessing we'll have some late arrivals because it's Friday night. I know this is not the most convenient time probably for most people to be here, but thank you, you all who are here live with us, and for everybody that doesn't make it live, we're gonna have the recording available. Okay. Let me just make sure I've got everything. Everybody can hear me okay? Everybody can see my screen? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, you all, whoops, got more people in the waiting room there. You all are muted and muted by default and will not, I don't think any of you are able to unmute without my assistance, and that's by design because we'll have a reasonable sized group here and I get easily distracted by background noise. So you all are on mute. You won't be able to unmute except Aaron. Well, Aaron, you probably can't even unmute. I'll probably have to unmute you when I'm ready. But if you have any questions or anything urgent, like you can't hear me or the screen, you can't see my screen or anything like that, feel free to put that in the chat box. You all should have access to the chat. You can also drop questions in there, but I will warn you right now, I'm probably not going to monitor that chat very closely while I'm talking. I end up getting too distracted by it sometimes. So I'll kind of skim back through that at the end and pick up any questions that we missed. Might be sometimes that I ask you all to put some things in the chat, and if I ask for that, then I will be, of course, looking at that. And then at the end, I'll try and save some time for questions. And at that point, we can either have people use the little hand raise button and I'll unmute you, or you can type questions right into the chat. And we are recording, so if for some reason you've got to leave or you can't be here the whole time, that's fine. You'll have access to the recording. You'll get a little email around an hour from now that'll tell you how to access the recording. So let's get started here, and we're gonna start with just some little intros, and I'm gonna ask Aaron to unmute if it'll let you. There you go. And we're gonna let Aaron start with a little intro. You probably all know who he is already, but if not, Aaron, tell him about you and what you do.
My name is Aaron Michael Lewis. I actually run a community that she put up there, the Bully Bee Bunch. We also have a nonprofit where we work with shelters, rescues, but we host community events for people like pack walks, classes, workshops, webinars. Thank you for this amazing event that you're hosting right now. And we just try to help handlers that need that help where they don't know where to look. And we're here in San Diego, but we've expanded a lot. We're in Los Angeles, we're parts of Texas, New York, and we're just continuously growing.
And anybody who's on here live or recorded, you can scan this QR code down at the bottom of Aaron's picture, and that's going to take you to his link tree. And Aaron, you've got a GoFundMe on there.
Yeah, we have a couple. Yeah, we have a couple of things: GoFundMe, Venmo, PayPal, but also like a merch store that also helps us with building the community and traveling and hosting events and things like that.
You probably already follow Aaron and his dogs. Your dogs both have their own accounts, right?
They do. Yes.
If you're not already following Aaron and his dogs, you should. Aaron, can you tell him what you have many accounts.
I have many accounts. I have my personal account, which is Aaron Michael Lewis. I have the most famous Sweetie Gigi in that picture you posted, and then Princess Arya Bark, the Bully Bee Bunch page, and Sweetie Gigi Friends, where we work with shelters and rescues. We have tons of pages.
So check them all out. The reason I found Aaron in the first place was from Gigi's page and uh going, oh good, I'm not the only person that talks to my dog like this all the time. So if you're not following them, give them a follow. If you're in the San Diego area or LA, check out all the cool events that they're doing, pack walks, group classes, community events, lots of awesome stuff going on to keep tabs on. Aaron, anything else you want to say to your
I just
fans? Like,
no, Now, I just want to say thank you for doing this. This is an amazing webinar. It's information that's needed. I appreciate you being there for the community.
Of course, I'm always happy to get good information out there to whoever needs it.
Absolutely.
All right, Aaron has to go teach classes tonight. That's how he spends his Friday night.
Thank
With
you.
thanks for popping in, Aaron.
No problem.
So I appreciate you all being here on your Friday night, and I don't know where you all are, but given that it's 5 o'clock here on the West Coast, it's probably even later for some of you if you're not on the West Coast. So thank you for being here. Um, I wanted to start with a quick little intro of who I am because I'm guessing a lot of you found me and found this webinar through Aaron. So if you don't already know me, I am Dr. Keira Moore and I am a behavior analyst. I started out my career as a human behavior analyst and switched into dog training, which is something it had always been a dream of mine to work with animals, and I kind of accidentally ended up working with animals after I adopted this little gremlin here, Frida Paulo. And she was we're not quite sure what her history was, but she came from somewhere in Mexico and she came with a whole lot of behavior problems that even as someone with a PhD in behavior analysis, I was not ready for the problems she brought into our lives. So I learned a lot from her, and I decided that was the push that I needed to finally switch gears a little bit and take what I know as a behavior analyst and start using that in dog training. So I got my dog training certification from the Karen Pryor Academy, and I'm a KPA CTP, and I specialize in fear, reactivity, anxiety, separation anxiety, and the biggest reason that I got into separation anxiety work, a lot of dog trainers shy away from doing separation anxiety work because it's hard, as you probably all know. That's why you're here, I assume. The reason that I got into it was this guy here. This is Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Barkness, and he was my first foster dog, and he had some pretty bad separation anxiety, and that was my first experience living with a dog with separation anxiety and realizing how hard that is, both on the dog and the human. And he was only with me for, I think, a little over a month, but man, that was one of the hardest months of my life dealing with him and his separation anxiety. And that's what really made me go, you know what? I have the skills to help people with this problem, and I know it's difficult, and I know it's work that a lot of trainers don't like to do because it's long and it's difficult and it's a process, but having been in it firsthand, I want to be able to use my skills to help people that are struggling with this because now I know what that feels like. So you can all thank this guy Ozzy for being my inspiration to actually get into doing separation anxiety work. So today we've only got an hour, although we can stay longer if people have questions, but we're gonna kind of do a quick overview of what is separation anxiety, what does it look like, what does it not look like, what are some myths that we should be avoiding when it comes to separation anxiety, and then what does good treatment actually look like. So first and best place to start is before we can talk about how we're going to help dogs with separation anxiety, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about what it actually is and what it isn't. Because I find sometimes I get calls about dogs with separation anxiety and that's not what they have at all. So separation anxiety is a clinical condition where a dog does not tolerate being alone or does not tolerate being without specific people. Separation anxiety is a panic disorder. It's not stubbornness. It's not just your dog being naughty. It's not disobedience. It's not your dog getting revenge. It's panic. When a dog with separation anxiety is left alone, they're not choosing to bark or chew or try to escape to make you mad or out of spite. They're having an actual fear response that can feel just as overwhelming as a human panic attack. So One thing that I'm always reminding my clients of when separation anxiety gets really frustrating is that your dog's not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. And that's not just a cute little catchphrase, that's the reality of the situation. Your dog's not being bad. Your dog's very scared and they don't understand what to do. So we use the term separation anxiety pretty broadly to describe clinical behavior where a dog panics when they're left alone. But really, there's a couple of different things that can be going on. There's really two sort of main categories of separation anxiety. One is isolation distress, and that's when a dog panics when they're left alone, but they're fine as long as they are with some person, even if it's a stranger in some cases. So as long as there is some living, breathing human with them, they're okay, but they don't like being alone and they panic when they're alone. In some rare cases, dogs with isolation distress are okay if there's another animal with them, but that's pretty rare. In most cases, it's that they want a human with them. There's also hyper attachment, and that is when a dog shows distress when they're separated from a specific person or specific people. So that might be that your dog freaks out anytime you're out of their sight or you leave the house or a certain person in the family leaves. For some dogs, it's everyone in their immediate family. They want everyone in their immediate family to be there all the time. And if any one person from the family leaves, then they have anxiety. There are some other conditions that can sometimes present like separation anxiety, but they're not quite the same thing. So one of those is confinement anxiety. And confinement anxiety is when the dog panics in a crate or behind a gate or anytime that they're confined to a space. So even if you're still in the house, or even if you're right there with them, if they are confined, they're not happy. These are dogs that really don't like being confined. My dog is one of them. I thought she had separation anxiety when I first adopted her because I was confining her in a small room with a baby gate because I didn't know if she was potty trained or if she was going to destroy things. And she would lose her mind the second I walked out the door. And I was like, oh no, I've got a dog with separation anxiety. And then I thought to myself, well, let me try if I don't put her behind the gate and I just watch on a video. And sure enough, she was fine. I left and she settled down and she was okay. So for some dogs, it's a confinement thing, it's not a separation thing. There's also barrier frustration. So barrier frustration happens when a dog wants access to something like another room or maybe going out in the yard, or a toy or a person or another dog, but there's a physical barrier in the way. And these dogs might whine or scratch at the door, a gate, a crate, but if you open the door and let them out and they can get the thing they want to get, they settle down. So we often see that behavior when humans are home and when there's things in sight but inaccessible that the dog wants. That's not separation anxiety. Dogs with true separation anxiety panic when they're left alone or when they're separated from a particular person. Some dogs might just get frustrated when they see something they want access to, but there's a barrier in the way. That's a different problem. Easier problem usually to fix. Sometimes people confuse separation anxiety with just a lack of training or boredom. If your dog engages in destructive behavior or they have accidents when you aren't home, but they also do it when you are home, then we might not have separation anxiety. We might just have a training issue. If your dog is home alone for, I'd say 5 or more hours a day, especially if they are young or very active dogs without a lot of stimulation and they're getting into stuff while you're gone, they might not have separation anxiety. They might just be bored. Dogs aren't meant to be social creatures. They're domesticated. They're meant to be hanging around humans. They're not meant to be spending 40 hours a week by themselves on the couch, expected to sleep and be good boys and good girls. So sometimes we see behavior that's just boredom. It's just a dog going, hey, I don't want to just sit here by myself for 40 hours a week with nothing to do. It's really important to be able to know the difference between all of those different things, though. And it's important to get input from a qualified trainer or somebody that knows separation anxiety if you think your dog has separation anxiety. And a good trainer will do a pretty lengthy assessment that'll involve a lot of questions and maybe some observation. And that's important because if we're going to properly diagnose what's going on, we don't want to confuse separation anxiety with these other issues, because then we risk giving advice that might actually make the problem worse. So, for example, if you think, oh, maybe my dog's just bored, and you buy more toys, but they really have separation anxiety, that's not going to fix it. That's just going to kick the can down the road. If you think it's a crate training problem and you go, oh, we just got to crate train harder, we've got to switch to an escape proof crate, you might actually be making the problem worse and increasing your dog's stress or potentially even putting them in danger. So it's important to first figure out what's actually going on. Do we have separation anxiety? Do we have something else? Because then that's going to help us get to the right treatment faster. People ask me a lot of times what causes separation anxiety. And the answer is usually we don't know. Separation anxiety can happen to any dog. I've seen it in purebred dogs. I've seen it in mixed breed dogs. I've seen it in young dogs. I've seen it in old dogs, rescue dogs, breeder bred dogs. There are a few risk factors like big life changes, moving to a new house, a schedule change, a new baby, a person moving out, the loss of another pet. That can be a risk factor for separation anxiety. Also, dogs who have never been left home alone before, like puppies that grew up during the COVID lockdowns. We saw a lot of separation anxiety after that. Or sometimes just puppies who have had someone around all the time. There are also dogs with genetic predispositions to anxiety and separation anxiety. I'm working with a client right now who got a dog from a reputable AKC breeder, and her dog has always had separation anxiety, and it turns out the dog's parents and litter mates also do. It's a good indicator that we've got a genetic issue there. Also, occasionally early life experiences can cause separation anxiety. Sometimes it happens after a scary event, like when a dog's home alone and a fire alarm goes off, or there's a scary noise or a thunderstorm. And more often than not, there's no reason at all. There's nothing that we can point to go, yeah, this is when it started, or this is what might have caused it. Sometimes we just don't know. And in most cases, it doesn't really matter. We're going to treat it the same way anyway. Also, something I want to acknowledge before we move on, living with a dog who panics when you leave is really hard. Owners often feel trapped. They can feel guilty. They might feel frustrated. You might have to cancel plans. You might have to avoid traveling. You might stop having people over. You might stop going out and doing things. It's exhausting and it's isolating. And I want to say up front, if this is you and you're like, yep, that's me, I'm frustrated, I feel isolated, this is a hard problem, this is exhausting. First of all, it's not your fault. It's not your dog's fault. It's just part of who your dog is right now. And it is something that we can help them work through. It doesn't have to be who your dog is forever. Okay, so a couple quick key takeaways here. Separation anxiety is a panic disorder. It is not just bad behavior. We need to look really carefully at it to figure out exactly what's going on, so we make sure we know, is this actually separation anxiety? Is this something else? And then we can move to the correct treatment quickly. And I think it's an important thing to remember, dogs with separation anxiety aren't just being dramatic. I hear that a lot. People go, oh, he's being so dramatic. He knows I'm coming home. I've never not come home. You know that, but your dog doesn't know that. When they're alone, their brains and their bodies are telling them that they're in danger, even if they're not. So now that we know what separation anxiety is, and we're hopefully all on the same page with a clear idea of what it looks like and what it is, let's talk a little bit more about what do we do for it? What are the signs that we might have that? And what do we not do? So first, let's talk about what it actually looks like. How do you know if your dog's actually having separation anxiety? Sometimes it's things that people don't realize are signs of separation anxiety. So we always look for observable signs. When a dog with separation anxiety is left alone or separated from their person, their body and their brain go into full-on panic mode. Some dogs are very obvious about this. They bark, they howl, they whine, they cry. Sometimes it goes on for hours. Other dogs are quieter about it, but still just as stressed. The volume of your dog does not tell you how stressed they are or how bad the problem is. But some of the most common things we see are vocalizing, and that could be barking, whining, howling, and it usually starts soon after you leave. Sometimes it starts before you even leave. Pacing or restlessness, dogs moving back and forth, pacing around, looking out windows, looking out the door. They can't quite settle down. Destructive chewing or digging, usually at doors, windows, crates, because they're trying to escape, trying to find where you are, trying to get to you. House soiling, dogs who are having accidents indoors, even when they are fully house trained when you're home. Sometimes we see excessive drooling, panting. I've even had a dog that was excessively sweating through their paw pads. You could see little sweaty footprints all over. Sometimes we see self-injury, broken teeth, cut paws, broken nails, raw skin from escape attempts. And again, some dogs are a little more silent in their suffering. Some dogs don't make a lot of noise when they're stressed. Some dogs just freeze or shut down or just stand and stare out the door. That doesn't mean they're calm. Silence isn't proof that they're relaxed. If a dog is doing anything other than laying down and resting when you're gone, chances are they're stressed. So observation is really, really important in figuring out if a dog has separation anxiety and in figuring out how our treatment is going. So one of the most important tools in identifying separation anxiety is a camera. And good news, you're all on Zoom right now, so you all know how to work Zoom already. Zoom is one of the easiest ways. You don't need a fancy pet cam. You don't need home security systems. You can grab an old phone. Probably all of us have old phones laying around that we don't use anymore but are still functional. And you can set up a Zoom call with yourself, really with your dog, and put one end inside where you can see and hear your dog, and you take the other end on your phone and go out for a walk and see what happens. So when we're watching or when we're observing, we're looking to see, what is the dog doing? Are we seeing any signs of stress? And when are we seeing signs of stress? And we're usually watching for the earliest warning signs, not the full-on panic, barking, howling, trying to escape, but does your dog start pacing right away? Do they start panting right away? Are they yawning? Are they doing stress licks of their lips? Most dogs with separation anxiety start showing distress right away. I think every single client I've ever worked with, when we do a baseline, it's immediate. The second the owner's touching the door, we're already seeing stress. Some dogs will settle eventually. Some dogs will continue to panic for hours. And so one thing that we want to look for in the beginning is when and how the behavior happens. Does stress happen only when the dog is alone? Does it happen when they're away from a specific person? Does it stop as soon as you return? Is it consistent across different times of the day or different settings? Does it matter if your dog has had exercise and a meal? Does it happen only when you leave for certain things like work where they know you're going to be gone for a long time? And again, that's where working with a qualified trainer can be really important. And I do want to give a little caveat on that. When I say qualified trainer, I think a lot of people don't know this, but dog training is a little bit like the Wild West. There is no regulation in the dog training industry. That means anybody can put up a sign and call themselves a dog trainer and take your money. Anybody can go, I'm a separation anxiety expert. I can help you and charge you a lot of money for that. When you are looking for a trainer that can help you with separation anxiety, if you are looking for a trainer, ask a lot of questions and look for somebody that has an actual certification. I don't love that there are a lot of people in the dog training field that say my qualifications are that I have had dogs for 30 years, or I have done this with my dog, or that with my dog, or I've had dogs get these titles. I've had knees for 35. I've had knees for 41 years, but I wouldn't call myself an orthopedic surgeon. I wouldn't try and diagnose your torn ACL or tell you how to rehab it. Having dogs and having experience is one thing, but for problems like this, you need very specific training. You need to actually know the science of how behavior works and how behavior changes and know how to fix these problems. This is a complicated problem to fix. So I would highly recommend, if you are looking for a separation anxiety trainer, look for somebody with actual training credentials. It doesn't necessarily have to be that they are certified in separation anxiety, but they should have some education specific to that. And you should ask questions about what kind of education have you had on this specific subject? What kind of training have you had? How do you collect data? If they're not collecting data, that's a big red flag. They should be collecting data in separation anxiety work. Can you show me data from past clients so I can see what it normally looks like and how long it normally takes? What continuing education do you do to keep your knowledge up to date on best practices? What is your ethics code? It's another big question. That's a big reason why I tell people steer towards qualified trainers that have training credentials, because they are bound to ethics boards. Like, I'm a KPA CTP. That means I have to get continuing education units every year, and I have to sign an ethics pledge every year, and I have to make sure that I'm using best practices. So those are things to be on the lookout for if you're looking for an actual person that you're going to give money to help you fix this problem. But a good trainer can, again, help you figure out if it's separation anxiety. They can also help you rule out, are there any medical issues? Are there any specific environmental triggers that are making the problem worse? Or are we maybe dealing with other behavior problems that look similar? And early identification of separation anxiety is key. The sooner we identify it, the sooner we can start helping, and the less time your dog spends panicking. If we miss it, or if we mistake it for something else, we might waste time, we might waste money, we might waste resources, and we might make things worse by using the wrong approach. So before we move on, I want to show you a couple of images that I found on social media and in the news that were showcased as funny stories about naughty dogs, that I think, as soon as I saw these pictures, that's not a naughty dog. That is an extreme case of separation anxiety. You probably all have seen things like this. Here's this dog who chewed through his front door. This was a news story that showed this. He like ripped off the letterbox and chewed through the front door. And it was a news story about, oh, look at this naughty dog that chewed through a door. That's not a naughty dog. That's a dog with separation anxiety. Here's this guy who chewed through an entire wall, a wooden wall. This I see all the time. This is a dog that destroyed their crate. This is a dog that ate an entire couch, whole couch. And that couch had a baby gate around it, which clearly did not work. This was a meme that I saw. I forgot my key. That's a dog that chewed through a pretty thick door. This is a dog that chewed through an airline crate. And if we look closely at this, that's blood all around it. That's blood on the floor. This is a dog who, in the same day, chewed through an entire couch and an entire door. That's a hard day's work right there. Now, these might look funny, and these things go around social media as like these funny things when we see them out of context, but look at this crate one where there's blood all over it. And in every one of these cases, this is extraordinary behavior. This is not fun for the dog. It's likely physically painful. Imagine using your teeth to bend the bars of a wire crate. Imagine using your teeth to chew through a front door. That's not boredom. That's not spite. That's panic. And that is a serious safety risk. Every one of these are really serious safety risks. This dog surely ingested much of this couch. That's not great. These dogs have surely ruined teeth. I had a client whose dog escaped the house, got into the backyard, and chewed through a 6-inch wooden fence and got out onto a highway. Luckily, a good Samaritan caught the dog, got the number on the tag, and called the owner. And when the owner went to pick him up, he was covered in blood from chewing through the fence, and he had ruined most of his teeth, like ground them right down to the root. Imagine how painful that had to have been. And then the extensive dental work that the dog needed after. That's a dog that's panicking. That's not a dog that's just having a good time or being spiteful. So before we talk about best practices in treating separation anxiety, I want to pause and bust a couple of common myths, because these are things that I see everywhere. Whenever I see in any dog groups that I'm in, my dog is having separation anxiety, what do I do? And there's a bunch of well-meaning people that comment, but they're usually not great ideas. Um, a lot of these things can set dogs back. They can make the problem worse, and they're just a waste of time and money. First myth, we kind of already talked about it. They're doing it to get back at me, or they're doing it out of spite, or my dog destroyed my couch because he was mad that I left and didn't take him with me. This is one of the most common and most damaging myths. Your dog is not chewing the couch out of spite. He's not plotting revenge because you went to brunch without him. Dogs do not have the cognitive ability to plan an act of revenge hours in advance. What they do have is the ability to panic when they feel unsafe. If a dog is destroying something when you're gone, it's usually because they're desperately trying to cope with how scared they are, not because they're trying to show you who's boss or stick it to you because you didn't take them with you. I tell people this all the time, think about how hard it was to teach your dog simple things. Like the word down means lay down. It probably took you a lot of reps and a lot of practice and a lot of treats to get that one simple word to mean to your dog, oh, I got to do this thing. Just to teach them how to lay down on cue. That takes a lot of work. If you think your dog can simultaneously be that simple, but also have the capacity to plot and understand how to make you mad, then you're sadly mistaken. I wish dogs were that smart, but alas, they are not. Second one is that you just need to let them cry it out. I hear that all the time. That's advice that's often borrowed from outdated human sleep training or baby sleep training, which, by the way, I am also a human sleep expert. That's my other main job. That's what I was doing as a human behavior analyst. And that's bad advice for humans too, turns out. The problem is letting a dog cry it out with separation anxiety is not teaching them that being alone is safe. It's doing the exact opposite. It's teaching them that they're not safe, and it's just flooding them with fear until they shut down, if they shut down at all. I've met plenty of dogs who don't. They don't ever cry it out. I had one client whose owners were gone 8 hours a day every day for years, and the dog cried for 8 hours a day every day for years. They didn't ever cry it out. That poor dog was exhausted. The dog would drool so much it was dehydrated. She ruined her teeth chewing through doors and drywall. So your dog might get tired enough or be in enough pain to eventually stop what they're doing, but that doesn't mean we fixed the problem. Next one is a insert simple fix here will fix it. Like a crate will fix it, or a Kong will fix it, or getting a mannequin will fix it, or a thunder shirt will fix it, or a pheromone plug-in, or dog TV, or music. I've been working with dogs with separation anxiety for quite a while now, and never in my practice has there been one tool or one thing that fixed any of them. If it were that easy, I wouldn't have a job, and you all wouldn't be here, because there would already be a magic fix that was simple. There just isn't, unfortunately. No one thing is going to fix the problem. Another myth, get them a buddy. Sometimes people think if they get a second dog, their first dog will magically stop panicking when they're left alone. But if your dog's distress is about being away from you or being away from humans, which it is for most dogs, another dog isn't going to solve the problem. And in fact, we usually then end up with two dogs with separation anxiety, even if the first one was stable. Imagine if you got locked in a room for 8 hours a day with another person who was panicking over something that you're not scared of. Even if you're not scared of the thing that they're panicking about, when you're left alone with them for that amount of time, you're going to start to get anxious too. When I had my foster dog, my dog has never had issues with separation anxiety, but when I had a foster with separation anxiety, guess what? She started having it too, because she was anxious about being left with him when he was pacing around and whining and crying and barking. And same thing, funny enough, I've had a couple other fosters since then, and every other foster I've gotten has had separation anxiety as well. And every single time my dog starts to spiral, she gets stressed out too. So usually getting another dog is not going to be the thing that solves the problem. Use a bark collar. That's my least favorite of all the advice. Bark collars, whether they are using shock, vibration, citronella spray, air spray, whatever the collar is doing, it does not treat separation anxiety. It might, if you're lucky, it might stop the sound of barking temporarily, but it does nothing to address the underlying fear. In fact, they can ultimately make things worse by adding a new layer of stress or fear for a dog that's already panicking. It's like punishing someone for screaming when they almost step on a snake. Doesn't make them less afraid of the snake next time. Probably makes them feel worse in the moment. So imagine crying out when you're scared and then all of a sudden getting a painful shock out of nowhere and having no idea why. Do you think that's going to make alone time more scary or less scary? Let you do the math on that one. So these things matter because often when we go ahead and follow these things or follow advice from well-meaning people to do any of these things, we're not only potentially making the problem worse, but we're also wasting time and wasting effort and wasting money. And the more a dog panics when they're left alone, the harder it is to fix the problem. The longer the problem goes on, the harder it is to change. Okay, let's talk about treatment. That's probably why you're all here. So I want you to understand something really, really important first before we get into the specifics. There is no one quick fix. And if anyone is trying to sell you one, run the other way because they're just trying to take your money. If anybody is ever trying to sell you a quick fix to separation anxiety, they are not going to fix the problem. They are going to take your money and then leave you high and dry. Treatment is a process, it's not a product. It takes time, takes patience. In some cases, it takes professional help. Not all, a lot of people can get through this themselves. There's a few key elements that are really crucial when treating separation anxiety, and this goes for everyone. All of my clients with separation anxiety, everyone that I know who's had a dog with separation anxiety. There's a couple key things you need. First is management. And what that means is stopping absences. So suspending any time that your dog is left alone beyond their comfort level, which for most dogs with separation anxiety is any amount of time. This is the most difficult step for most people, but this is also the most critical step because every time your dog practices panicking, the fear gets worse. We want to give their nervous system a break. We want to stop triggering that panic. And we want to start teaching them that alone time can be safe. It is very difficult to make progress without this, as hard as that is. I always give my clients the example of imagine if you had a phobia of snakes and I said, okay, we're going to do some systematic desensitization. We're going to fix your snake phobia. We're going to start with little itty bitty teeny tiny baby snakes that are not dangerous. And I'm going to stand a football field away. And you tell me if I can come closer or not. And if you're feeling scared, you wave me off and I'll put that snake away. And we're going to keep working on that every day until you're feeling better and better. But also sometimes I'm just going to kidnap you out of your bed and throw you into a pit of snakes. Do you think your snake phobia is going to get any better if you also think sometimes I'm just going to throw you in the deep end? Of course not. Same thing happens with our dogs. If we're trying to train through this and teach them that they're safe when they're alone, but then we sometimes just throw them in the deep end and go, well, I got to go to work. Sorry, you're on your own. We're not going to make progress. Making arrangements to not leave your dog alone longer than they can handle is a big deal. I won't sugarcoat that. I never sugarcoat that for my clients. And I always tell my clients, if you cannot do that, I cannot work with you because I'm not going to take your money and not fix your problem. If we're going to fix your problem, we need your dog to not be alone other than when we're training. Now, I've had a lot of clients come up with a lot of really creative ideas. Daycares, friends, families, neighbors, dog walkers, rover sitters, a friend that works from home. I had somebody that got back in touch with their ex and they were like, I really don't want to talk to this person, but this person knows my dog and they love my dog. And I know that if I ask if I can drop my dog off with them every day, they work from home and they'll do it. And they did. And that's been a solution that worked well for them. I know it's a big ask. I know it's a hard thing to do for a lot of people that have dogs with separation anxiety, but I've never had a client who wasn't able to strategize, usually with some help from me, and figure that out for at least a few weeks while we get started. I always tell my clients up front, I want you to have a plan a month where your dog is not going to be alone other than training time. Let's just think about it as a month. Let's get training going. We'll see where we're at after a month. But if you can do a month, then if we need to, we can probably do longer. Because once you've got a month figured out, it gets a lot easier. I know that's the hard part. It can be done. I promise you it can be done. And it can be done on a budget too. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. Next step is preparation. So we prepare for training sessions by choosing a safe space, usually not a crate, because most dogs panic more when they're confined, but usually a comfortable dog-proofed area where we know they'll be safe. And we also set up distinct safety signals. So for my clients, that's usually putting out a certain bed or a resting place and then playing music. And those are signals that tell the dog that we are now training and we are not going to let them panic. We are only going to leave in periods of time that feel safe for the dog. And if they start to get panicky, we're coming right back. And we also set up cameras to make sure that we can observe in real time. We usually use pet cams or Zoom on a tablet or a phone, anything that lets us see the dog and hear the dog. And when we're training, we stop the sessions at the first signs of fear, anxiety, or stress. If we see the dog starting to get worried, we go, okay, get right back in there. Because we're teaching the dog, you're safe. You're okay. I'm right here. I'm always coming right back before you get too scared. And the real heart of the plan is that we use gradual desensitization. That's where the real magic happens. We start with an absence length that your dog can handle without showing any signs of stress. And sometimes, more often than not, that's not even leaving. For most of my clients, it starts with just the person walking and touching the door handle. And for most clients, initially, that's even stress provoking. They get up and walk and touch the door, and their dog goes, oh my God, are you leaving? Don't leave me. So for most clients, that's where we start. Sometimes we get lucky and we get clients that can get a few seconds out the door before their dog panics. But we always start where the dog is comfortable and we practice that step until the dog starts to go, okay, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is you're doing is boring. So I'm going to go lay down over here and relax. That's what we want to see within the first session. Do we get to a point that the dog's like, I don't know why this crazy lady keeps going and touching the doorknob, but I'm going to be over there on the couch because obviously you're not going anywhere. That's exactly what we want. And then our next session, we start increasing that duration just in tiny increments. For some dogs, that just looks like we open the door a little bit and we close it. We open it a little, we close it. For some dogs, we step out for a little bit. For some dogs, we can start with a few seconds out, but each step is small. And we're always looking at keeping the dog under their panic threshold. We want the dog to be comfortable and safe. And we want them to know when we're training and go, oh, they took out that bed, they started putting on that music. That means they're going to go do that weird thing where they go in and out, but they're going to come back. And they're going to come back before I start to feel scared. And if I start to feel scared, somehow my human's going to know and they're going to show right back up. If a dog shows stress, we stop, we regroup, we go back to an easier step. Separation anxiety training is slow. It's slow, it's progressive, it requires consistency. And initially, we don't include any of the normal cues that might tip the dog off that we're gonna leave. We just walk out the door. No keys, no bags, no shoes. Although I have to remember, I live in Southern California. We can go out without shoes any time of the year, day or night. I work with a lot of Chicago-based clients right now, and sometimes I forget that's not true everywhere else. And I recently had, not recently, this was in the winter, I had a client and I said, okay, the first step, I don't want you to put shoes on or anything. You're just going to walk out the door. And he looked at me and goes, there's like 2 feet of snow out there. And I was like, oh, I forgot you guys have weather. So sometimes we do need shoes and coats, but we're careful how we do that. But we add all of those cues back in slowly, one at a time, after the dog's comfortable with a little bit of alone time. Because those are things that usually trigger the dog. They see you grab your keys and they go, oh no, you're leaving. I'm not coming with you. But the key in the whole thing is we don't rush it. We go at the dog's pace and we keep building trust that they're safe and calm and that we're going to come back if they get scared. And we are really careful not to push them too far too fast. We want them to go, oh, when my person leaves, nothing bad's going to happen. We also collect a lot of data when we're doing separation anxiety treatment. We look at graphs. Progress is rarely linear, though. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. Not every day is going to be the same amount of progress. That's normal. And we often recruit help. So sometimes we have family members helping with training, neighbors, pet sitters, daycares. Sometimes I've had clients ask if they could bring their dog to work temporarily. You'd be surprised if you explain to people, my dog has a panic disorder and my dog is panicking when they're left alone and I'm working with a trainer on it. Can my dog come with me here or there? Or can you watch my dog? People feel bad when you tell them that you're a poor little dog and show them a cute picture and say, my poor little dog is panicking. I really need some help. So often people are pleasantly surprised how much people are willing to help them with this. So, like I said before, separation anxiety training it's not a quick sprint, it's a marathon. And I like to prepare people for what that process looks like so that you know what's normal and that you know you have to just stick with it. Progress is slow and steady. In the beginning, your dog's alone time might be measured in seconds, not minutes. That's not failure. That's where we start for most people. We're building trust, we're changing an emotional response, and that takes time. And again, it's rarely linear. You might have a really great week of progress, and then all of a sudden your dog's struggling with a step that was easy for them the week before. That doesn't mean you go back to square one. That's just how learning and emotions work. We have good days, we have bad days. Stress, changes in routine, random triggers, those things can all cause temporary setbacks. And sometimes your data looks like this. I'm taking data here on the maximum duration that the human is gone, where the dog is calm. This is from a client with a puppy. And they started this training when the puppy first came home to them and was showing some early signs of separation anxiety. And this is when we work with puppies or dogs that don't have a long history of separation anxiety, that's where we tend to see the most linear progress. So this dog started at less than 1 minute. When we were first leaving, we could barely get out the door. And you'll see dates here. They started 5/7/2025. By 8/11/2025, they were at almost 2 hours out the door. Okay, so that's a matter of 3 months. And this is them training just a couple days a week. They went from couldn't leave at all to about 2 hours gone. And this is a puppy. And this is pretty linear progress here. This is rare. It's usually not that clean. It's usually more like this. This is a client who had an adult dog who had been left home alone for years panicking. And this person was gone 40 hours a week. So this is a dog that had a lot of practice being scared and progress was slower. And you see in the beginning, we had nice linear upward progress and we purposefully programmed some easier sessions in there. So when you see a dip in the duration, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's on purpose. We're just giving the dog an easy day. We're making nice upward progress. Here's a dog again that could not tolerate being left alone at all. We got up to about 20 minutes and then we saw a dip. Then we worked our way back up. We got about to a little over 20. kind of leveled out for a bit, got up to 30, and then we had a huge setback. The owner had gone on a vacation, and we had to kind of start low again. We worked our way up, we had a bad day, worked our way back up, had some bad days, worked our way back up, had some bad days, and then they were up at around 40 minutes. This is a dog that took 4 months to just get to 40 minutes alone. So it can look different for everybody. And a big part of how the training goes and how smoothly it goes is how quickly do we start. Consistency is really key here. And we're always, again, going to move at the dog's pace. There's no typical timeline. I usually show these things to clients before I start and say, here's a puppy that progressed really quickly. And at the 3-month point, I discharged, actually at the 2-month point, I discharged them. So right around here, they were at about an hour. I discharged them. The rest of this they did on their own. This client, I discharged them when they were at 40 minutes and they took over on their own. I don't have the rest of the data to show, but they've been continuing to make progress there. I do always warn people the process can feel exhausting. It can be really emotional for people. A lot of owners feel guilty, they feel frustrated, they might resent their dog. That's normal. You're human. You have to give yourself grace too. You have to give your dog grace, you have to give yourself grace, and we celebrate the small wins. And we remember there's a lot of other people struggling with this too. A lot of other people going through this same process. I want to show you, this is one of my hardest clients that I've ever had. We're still working together. I'm going to mute this. This is Kenna before. She was a rescue. We don't know her history, but the second she was left alone, she would panic. She's barking, she's whining, she's howling. She's trying to dig under the door. She's digging at the door frame. She would break out of crates. That's why she's not in the crate. But this is what would happen if her owner was gone at all. This is Kenna now. This was in the middle of a session after 15 minutes of alone time. So he had already been out of the room for 15 minutes, and this is what most of her sessions were looking like. He'd leave, she'd go, I'm gonna get comfy over here on the bed, and then that's what the rest of the session looked like. And even you see him coming in and she doesn't even care. She's just like, all right, he's back. That's what we want it to look like in treatment. And this dog, they recently hit an hour after a lot of hard work and a lot of ups and downs, and we're still working together because they still have a lot of ups and downs. The owner has to travel a lot. The dog's had some health issues. They've had a lot of hurdles, but they're sticking with it and still making progress. So it can be hard. I know we're almost at the end of our hour, so I want to make sure people have resources. So a couple of things, these are kind of grouped based on how much support you need or what you like. If you like to read, two of my top recommendations for books, I've got them right here. One is called Be Right Back by Julie Naismith. This is a really easy, straightforward read. This is written for dog owners. She also has a puppy version of this book. My other favorite is by Milena DiMartini. It's called Separation Anxiety in Dogs. This is a smaller book, but it is a little bit more of geared towards dog trainers. So it's got a little bit more jargon and I think a little harder to follow. Still great information. Both of them are great. Those are both written by two of the top experts in separation anxiety, and they both follow the same approach as what we've talked about today. If you prefer podcasts, Julie Naismith has a fantastic podcast called Be Right Back. They have short episodes on different topics, but it's all on separation anxiety. So you can look by specific things, like if your dog has a very specific problem. If you want to work with help, but you want to work mostly independently, both Julie and Milena's websites have pretty reasonably priced self-study programs. Julie's is called Separation Anxiety Heroes. Milena's is called Mission Possible. And with both of those, you still get structure and expert guidance, but you go at your own pace without the cost of one-on-one coaching. That can be a really good fit if you are very disciplined about running your own training sessions. Like if you know, okay, if I buy this course, I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to do it, those will work great. If you're somebody that goes, I know I'm going to need a little bit more accountability or somebody working hand in hand with me to help me, then go for one-on-one training support. If you need one-on-one training support, I work virtually with clients anywhere in the world. Almost all separation anxiety work is done virtually because we're going to be leaving your dog alone. So it doesn't make sense for the trainer to come to your house and then go, okay, let's leave now. So we always do it virtually because we're monitoring virtually anyway. So I work with people all over the world. That said, I will be very upfront. I always have a waiting list. I'm always booked out. I'm usually booked out at least a month. Right now, I'm not taking new clients until probably mid-October. That tends to be the case with most good separation anxiety trainers. They're booked out because there are not very many of us, and there are a lot of you. There are a lot of people with separation anxiety issues. When I work with clients, you get a customized plan. We always start with an eval first, then we come up with a plan together, and then you run training sessions 5 days a week. And I review videos and data and give you step-by-step support through all of that and coaching through all of that. And yeah, if that's kind of my general approach. I'm happy to talk to people more about that if you have questions. If you need help from a one-on-one trainer and I'm not available or I'm overbooked, you can always still reach out, and I'm always happy to refer people to other trusted trainers and colleagues. I'm not shy about supporting other people that do this work as well. So no matter where you're at, no matter where you're starting, if you want a book, podcast, independent work, a trainer, there's plenty of good stuff out there. The most important thing is do it. Start on it, take action. The sooner you start, the sooner your dog will start learning that being alone is safe. And the sooner you start and the less time your dog spends panicking, the easier the problem usually is to fix. I haven't been monitoring the chat, so I'll check if there's questions, but before we get to that, if you scan this, that'll take you to my link tree. Subscribe, you can subscribe on link trees. There's like a little bell thing. If you subscribe on my link tree, I'm gonna offer more free webinars in the next couple of months. I'm looking at doing one on reactivity, fear and anxiety, things like that. If there's any specific topics that people are hoping for webinars on, contact me on Linktree, and I'm happy to entertain people's ideas or things that you want to learn more about. And anytime I'm going to do a webinar, I'll post on that Linktree, and I'll also post on Instagram. So if you subscribe on Linktree, you'll get a notification if I put something new on there. I also have some free handouts and things on there. If you're not already on social media, give me a follow on Instagram, Pet Project Dog Training, because that's where I will always announce things first. And sometimes I do webinars that are limited because I want to be able to actually talk with people one-on-one. Sometimes I do virtual classes. So all things like that, I'll always announce on Instagram first so that people get first dibs on signing up for that stuff. Also, you get to see a lot of my own dog, and she's really cute. The recording will go on my link tree if you want to rewatch it or if you want to share it with anybody or you know somebody that could benefit from this. So if you're on my link tree, you'll get that. You'll get an email. Probably you may have already gotten it. It should come out soon with that information as well. And I thank you all for being here. I'm happy to stay on if people have questions. I'm going to just scroll through quickly and look, and you all are welcome to go if you don't have questions. Or if you do, you can also do the little hand raise thing, and I will unmute you and let you ask questions. I saw Patty. I don't know, Patty, are you still here? I don't see Patty anymore. Patty asked, do you modify the protocol if the dog does not respond to the standard desensitization or sub-threshold approach? The protocol is pretty much the same for everybody. It just starts at whatever point your dog's comfortable. And if there's not a point where your dog is comfortable, we find it. We figure out, okay, can I just walk up and touch the door handle? And if you can't, we practice there. Let's see. Anything else? Should we be saying goodbye? You can just leave. You don't have to say goodbye. Be Right Back app. Yep, Patty mentioned the Be Right Back app. That's great. Any connections or recommendations for trainers in Charlotte, North Carolina? That's a good question. I would have to check. I don't know any off the top of my head, but I can check. So Stacy, I don't think is still here, but if you are, send me an email and I can take a look. How to behave when you're returning. That's a great question. What do you do when you return? I always have my clients acknowledge the dog, do like a quick, quiet hello and quick scratch, but nothing that's going to be like super exciting. Like, we're not coming back in and being like, oh my God, you're still here. It's just a nice, quick call. I'm like, hey, buddy, and a little pat on the head. We also don't just ignore them completely because that's weird. We don't want to be socially awkward with our dogs. So we walk in, we acknowledge them, we say hi, and then we take our data and act busy for a little while, and then we run our next step. Stacy said, I am still here. What's your email? My email is Keira, Keira, at petprojectdogtraining.com. And if you can't remember that, just scan the QR code and there's a contact me button on my link tree. And that's probably easier. Stacy said, I'm here. Oh, I just read that. You can also send a message on Instagram. I don't monitor Instagram all the time because otherwise I get sucked into it, but I check messages at least once a day. Amber said, for potty trained dogs that mess randomly, would you check urine at the vet first before thinking separation anxiety? Yeah, I always make sure dogs have had a thorough vet workup and that we're not looking at some kind of physical problem before we try to treat separation anxiety. Because if there's something medical or physical going on, we're not going to get anywhere with treatment. We want a healthy, happy, comfortable dog. So yeah, that is something that I do check on. Anything else? Any questions that we missed? You can, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you, or you can type things in the chat if there's anything we missed. And for everybody that's watching the recording, if you end up having questions, you can always email me. I am going to be traveling over the next month, so my work schedule is going to be a little slimmer than normal, but I tend to try to be pretty responsive to email. Anything else? Doing treats when returning. I don't use food at all in separation anxiety training. I find it just muddies the waters. We don't need food because food is an irrelevant reinforcer. The real reinforcer is you, which should make you feel good. If you've got a dog with separation anxiety, you are the most powerful reinforcer. It's you coming back. So no, we don't use food. Okay, any other questions? Thank you all for being here on a Friday night. I know this is not the most exciting thing to do on a Friday. Maybe it is. It is for me. I'm always happy to talk about dog training. Live in a townhome's not really a front door. That's okay. We always, part of what we do in an assessment is look at the environment and talk about what are your exits, where do you normally go in and out of, what else can your dog perceive once you're out the door? Like, do they know if you've actually gotten in the car? Can they hear a garage? Do they hear an elevator button? Anything like that. So we take all of that into consideration. Good. I'm glad this has been worth the time for you all. Good. Okay, everybody, thank you for coming and joining me tonight. Subscribe on that link tree and hopefully see you all again in the future. Let me know if there's anything specific you want webinars on. All right, everybody, have a good night.